So we're going to go through today and give you a brief overview of the MyGinnieMae portal. This again is for our organization administrators, and it's going to show you how to onboard users into MyGinnieMae and how to manage those user accounts after those users have been onboarded. There is a video demonstration component, and we will break a couple of times for Q&A. Again, my name is Letitia Jefferson. I'm in the Office of Securities Operations in GinnieMae. I am the Customer Experience Group Lead, and I am joined today by several experts from GinnieMae Customer Support, including Wade Gale, Sean Wilson, and Erica Newton, who will be on hand to answer any questions that you might have. If you look at the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A. We do ask that if you have questions throughout the presentation that you would like to ask immediately, you post them in that Q&A section. Thereby, everyone who is participating can have the benefit of seeing and understanding the response to those questions. If you would like to wait until we break for a Q&A, which we will do twice throughout the presentation, you're welcome to ask your question over the audio that way. Either way, just know that we're here to help. Next slide. Okay, here's a little rundown of what we're going to cover in the first part of the presentation. We're going to walk you through how to onboard end users into MyGinnieMae. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the Access Management Console, go over your roles and responsibilities as an organization administrator, and then we're going to talk about the onboarding workflow for MyGinnieMae and how you get to that Access Management Console. We're going to do a video demonstration that will walk you through how to register users for the portal. So sending registration requests and approving those registration requests, and then how you provide functional roles. We call those access requests and approvals. And so we'll also go over how you request a functional role and approve that for a user account. We'll give you a few tips for things that you should line up before you begin onboarding a user into the portal, and also send you to the troubleshooting section of our AMC user manual before we open up for a Q&A. Next slide. First and foremost, we want to introduce you to the Access Management Console User Manual. If you go to the GinnieMae website on ginniemai.gov, there is a section on issuer training, and underneath that is a subsection called Tools and Resources. On that page, we have user manuals, quick reference cards, training presentations, as well as training recordings that will all help you navigate your responsibilities in MyGinnieMae. For our organization administrators, you'll want to clue into the Access Management Console User Manual. The Access Management Console is the application that you use to onboard and manage users in MyGinnieMae. It's also where you will access reports, which we'll go over in the second half of the presentation today. So definitely please take the time to click on the link that's in the presentation that was emailed to you so that you can get directed to the ginniemai.gov website and take a moment to open up that user manual. Look through the sections that are in there as they do have step-by-step detailed instructions that'll help you through just about any process you need to navigate in order to conduct your functions as an organization administrator. Next slide. So here's a little bit about roles and responsibilities. It's very important that you understand your role and your responsibilities as an organization administrator. So in our legacy systems, these folks were known as security officers and enrollment administrators. Most of them were grandfathered into the MyGinnieMae portal when we got started, and some of you are actually brand new. So what you need to understand is either way, it's a whole new ball game. And your responsibilities in the MyGinnieMae portal of an organization administrator are a privileged responsibility and role that allow you to invite users from your organization to register for accounts in the MyGinnieMae portal. It also allows you to control the level of access that those users have. It's important for you to know that you are responsible for ensuring that users in your organization have no more than the appropriate amount of access for their business role. So please understand it is completely inappropriate for you to go in and assign them broad access in the MyGinnieMae portal unless their role requires that. Do know that we monitor our organizations and the access that's being granted. And if you do provide all functional roles to users, it's a red flag to us, and we may not approve or what we call finalize that user for activity in MyGinnieMae. So it is important that you understand this isn't just an exercise in completing some steps, you know, and clicks in a system. You also have the responsibility of making sure that users are not overprivileged in that system. The portal is set up with a separation of duties. So this workflow requires multiple organization administrators in order to request account access, and then a second administrator to approve account access, as well as for functional roles. And so there is a different role for you to play in our modernized MyGinnieMae portal than you may have previously played in our legacy systems. If you're brand new to the ballgame of being an organization administrator or a security officer and enrollment administrator, this training should help get you started. So don't be afraid. Now, in the chain of command above you and below you are two very important folks as well. The operations administrator is the overarching administrator for the portal and provides general oversight. They finalize your users before they are able to access the GinnieMae portal, MyGinnieMae portal, but they do not actually manage the individual users in your organization. They are your resource if you are having trouble navigating the system and if you have technical issues, but they are also going to direct you back to user materials that are designed to help you navigate the steps and responsibilities that you have on a day-to-day basis. So use them if you're having technical issues, but understand that there are other resources available if you're just generally trying to understand and learn how to navigate the portal. Now, underneath you are your end users. Inside of your organization, these are the users that are responsible for doing business and conducting business transactions with MyGinnieMae. They need access to business applications like RFS, IPMS, GMF, GinnieNet, MFPDM, and soon SFPDM. And those folks are what we call end users. You are able to register folks in the system. You're able to assign them those functional roles. You're able to lock and unlock their accounts. You're able to add additional functional roles. It is your responsibility as an organization administrator to keep those end users up and running in the MyGinnieMae portal. Again, if you have a technical issue that is not within the normal scope of activities for a user, the operations administrator is available to you at GinnieMae customer support to assist you in those responsibilities, but they are not able to manage those end user accounts on your behalf. So it's important that you know that you do have an important role to play to keep your users moving along and able to do business. Next slide. And these are the functional roles that I was talking about. The way that system access is granted in MyGinnieMae is fundamentally different than we've done it in the past. You need to be less concerned with the individual systems that a user needs and more aware of the business role that they play in your organization. So for example, someone who is responsible for delivering pools and is a token holder, otherwise known as an authorized signer on the 11702, would need to have that single family loan delivery and pooling authorized signer functional role. Assigning them that functional role gives them all the abilities to upload, enter, and enter pools into GinnieNet, or soon to be SFPDM. It will also allow them to sign. So it will allow them to use their token to submit that pool. And so it's important that you make sure that you provide those users that single family loan delivery and pooling authorized signer. Unless you're a multifamily organization, then it's important that you assign them the multifamily investor, loan delivery and pooling authorized signer functional role. What you've been provided here is just a subset of functional roles that are available. If you see the link above, there's a functional role matrix, which is available to you and will identify all of the functional roles that can be assigned. It is perfectly appropriate to assign more than one functional role to a user if their business responsibilities require it. But one thing you do not need to do is assign a basic user and authorized signer functional role to one individual. Your authorized signers are automatically provided the functions of a basic user when they receive that authorized signer functional role. So something important to note, and we will mention that again later on in our presentation. Here we just want you to understand that these roles are grouped by the program type and available to you in a functional role matrix to help you identify what roles to assign to individual users. If your users are coming to you and telling you that they need access to a specific system, I would take the time to review with them what their business responsibilities are and what functional role aligns. It could be that they may need an additional functional role, or it could be that they had system access in the past that was broader than their responsibilities, and they should not need to continue to have that system access. It's a conversation with you and the users in your organization, as well as their directors and who they report to make sure that you are not over provisioning any user for access that they do not need based on their business function. Next slide. So here's a little bit of a lineup of what it is that you can do that no one else can do. So there are several functions in MyGinnieMae that you can manage on behalf of users. You can send a registration invitation to those users. You can approve or reject that invitation. You can send a request for a functional role. You can approve or reject that request for a functional role. You can remove a functional role from an end user or add additional functional roles to that end user. You can enable or disable, lock and unlock user accounts. And you are also able to deregister users with what's called the Oracle Mobile Authenticator, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And you're able to update account attributes such as the username, phone number, I'm sorry, not the username, the phone number, business title, so on and so forth. So those are all things that you can manage on behalf of your end users. You can see that the end users are able to conduct some of those functions on their own. End users are able to self-service if they have forgotten their password or they need to reset their password. There are links in the MyGinnieMae portal for them to manage those activities on their own. They can register and deregister with the Oracle Mobile Authenticator without you having to assist unless they request that you do. And they can update some of their own account attributes, including their business title and phone number, so on and so forth. Those are all things that they can manage on their own without your assistance, should they choose to do so. But what's even more important is if you look over in that operations administrator column, there's only one thing that the operations administrator can do that or has a responsibility for that you cannot assist with, and that is final acknowledgement of access requests. So after you as the organization administrator have taken all the steps that you need to set up a user account and to assign functional roles, the operations administrator at the Bank of New York Mellon on behalf of GinnieMae will finalize that user account so the user can then access MyGinnieMae and business applications. That is the only function that they complete in terms of user registration and management for your end users. All of the functions to register and manage end user accounts in MyGinnieMae for the users of your organization are your responsibility as the organization administrator. So it's important that you note that because there is a major shift here in responsibilities as well as, functionality. It used to be that if you forgot your password or got locked out of the portal, GMAP 1.0, you had to contact GinnieMae customer support in order to get that account locked or update your password. That is no longer the case. A lot of those functions users will be able to manage on their own, or you can assist them. Next slide. Okay, so here's the onboarding workflow. If you have not seen this, I'm going to go through it very quickly, but it'll become a little more clear when we actually demonstrate the steps and walk through them, how you register and provide access to a user. So the first thing that you need to know is we talked about a separation of duties. On the far left is requesting org admin number 1. This is the organization administrator who sends an email invitation through the MyGinnieMae portal to an end user. That end user receives the invitation, they complete a registration form, and they send it back through MyGinnieMae. A second organization administrator then goes in to either approve or reject that request. Note, this cannot be the organization administrator who sent the registration invitation. This is part of the separation of duties that is built into the onboarding workflow. It must be a different organization administrator within your organization. Once that registration request has been approved and account has been created, the organization administrator will then proceed to request functional roles for that user. You can request all the roles that are necessary for their business responsibilities, and once you have submitted that request, another organization administrator will go in and approve or reject that request for functional roles to be assigned to the end user. Again, if you are the person who requested the functional roles, you cannot be the person who approves the functional roles. And once those functional roles have been approved, the request goes up to the operations administrator at the Bank of New York Mellon. They will finalize that account access, and then and only then can the user log into the portal and actually access GinnieMae business applications. Altogether, this is called the onboarding workflow. There's the registration workflow in order to create the account, and there's the access workflow in order to assign functional roles. After an account has been created, you can add functional roles at any time. So that access workflow is something that you may need to, encounter even after an account has been established, if someone's responsibilities change and they need additional access. Those are the two workflows that come together to completely onboard a user into MyGinnieMae. Next slide. So here's where all of the work gets done for our organization administrators and the responsibilities that we just covered. Once you've logged into the MyGinnieMae portal and you go to the top of the screen, there is what's called the Tools drop-down menu. When you select the Tools drop-down, it opens up a list of applications that you have access to. If you've been properly set up as an organization administrator, under Applications, you will see the Access Management Console. You'll select that application. There'll be a warning message. You will select yes to be directed to the Access Management Console, and then you'll land on the landing page for the AMC. There will be tiles there that you can use to send registration invitations, approve requests, and to manage user accounts. So any functions that you need to complete as an organization administrator are done right here in the Access Management Console. Next slide. So without further ado, we're going to jump into our first video demonstration, and we're going to show you how you request a registration invitation to be sent to a user, and then how a second org admin would go in and approve that registration request. After we are done with the video presentation, we will open up for a Q&A. So feel free to hold your questions if you can, or go ahead and drop them into the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. Ian?
Yep, pulling up the video right now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Letitia. Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Monday. We're going to try and drive. Oh, say that word, drive. We're going to try and walk you through. Let's walk. Try and walk you through the process of how to set up an end user on the system. Just want to give you an idea what this. We're showing you the screen that you'll see when you actually log in initially as a org admin. And these are the 4 tiles that we had Letitia had mentioned just briefly a while ago. You're going to have these 4 tiles as part of your desktop. You're going to have the new user registration. You're going to have the access request. You're going to have the pending approval, and you're going to have the user management. For our session today, we're going to concentrate mostly on the new user registration. As admin, of course, you would have to send out that registration invite to your end users. So that's where we're going to start. So as a org admin, you're going to make sure you click on that new user registration to actually initiate the invite to your end user. Now, you're going to click on where it says Applications, and once you click on Application, it brings up the screen for you to click on User Registration after that. And it brings up the screen that you're going to use to send the invite out. And Tawheed, while I'm doing this, if you think Wade missed something, don't hesitate to jump in. Okay, sir?
Thanks, Wade. Will do.
No. Okay. So this is our user request screen, and there's a couple of information you have to actually fill in as part of this process to send over to your end user. One of them is the title. So you have a drop down, you pick the person's title. Then you have a first name, a middle name if there's one, and a last name. And of course, you want to put in the person's job title. Oh, you got it right, Tony. Very good. Then you're gonna pick you're gonna have your org ID. Of course, if you have one issue number, it's only gonna show your issue number there, so that's no problem. You're gonna select that. Then you have your email address. Now the email address that we're putting here is also should be a business email address. So because we at BNY Mellon would have actually whitelisted this, that means we would have put it in the system to make sure it's an authorized email domain we can send an invite to. Once the email address is in, if you click out of the box itself, so right away you're telling me that that's not a correct email address. So that is not not whitelisted, so we cannot actually send an invite with that. So we need to make corrections to that.
And to add on that, Wade, as well as if the account already exists, if the user with the email address is an existing user, you'll also get an error message because the system does validate to check if you exist or not in the system.
Yes. We have a couple slides later that we're going to show you just some of those error messages also. Okay, so we're good. So we have after that information, we click on Submit, and it's going to send the invitation to our end user. The end user gets the invite. They fill out the information. Once that information is filled out, it's going to come back to you for a approval.
Please note the org admin who submits the request will not be able to approve the user. A second org admin will have to do that.
So in the space of magic, are we saying that the person already accepted and it came into the second org admin? So we're going to do the approval? So there's that invite that came back, user registration request approval, and just a number to recognize. So let's click on that. And here's all the necessary information. What I'll suggest you do, just make sure do another check. The second org admin, just check for the person's first and last name. All the necessary information is filled in. If you find out that this is supposed to be Wade Gale and not Tawheed, you can actually reject this at this point. So you don't want to actually approve this, and then in the end the person wants to change your name. It becomes another another issue to actually get this changed. So just do your due diligence and check on the information here. Make sure that it's correct. If it is correct and you're good, then you choose the approved registration. You want to make sure you set that information there and it's also confirmed. Use the registration request, and the number is there that we had seen initially on the screen is approved successfully. So once that information is approved, of course, the information of notification is going to go back to. No, once that information is now the org admin can go in and actually set up the person's functional role. So the next thing we're going to go to now is the next tile called access request. So that person that we just approved should be on the system. So let's try and find that person. There's that person, Demo Toid. Love that name. Now, since we kind of know what the roles are for Toid, we just need to find those functional roles and give them to them. Do we have anything? Let's see. This is a test environment, so right now we might not have anything that says HECM, but we're going to choose the. Do we have anything that says loan delivery? We'll just use that for the time being. And assign roles. And what happens, it generates all, these are the roles. We're just using this as an example. It's a loan delivery and pool basic user. So that means this person is just a basic user. They have the ability to actually do data entry. They cannot do any submission because it doesn't say authorized signer. So they're allowed to log in and set up their pools. But when it's time for submission, an authorized signer would have to go through the submission using the RSA token. So it just tells you what some of the entitlements are a part of this functional role. So those are the entitlements there. So once that is in, you're going to click and submit. And this we're just showing you one functional role. A user might have more than one, so you just select according to what is appropriate for that person's job function. Once that's submit, of course it goes through a couple check behind the back. You want to make sure you see that green mark up front. All requests were submitted successfully. That's a good. So what that tells me now, that a notification was also sent to the second admin that they can go in and do a approval of this account.
And now we're currently seeing the second org administrator.
So we're going to go in as the second admin now. And again, of course, they need to go to Toid. Are you sure you should go to
I'm
pen?
sorry, it was supposed to be.
You did it
I
on
apologize.
purpose, didn't you? Just to get to me. That's okay. At least I was following. So we do stuff like that, so we make sure we're on cue. So now for the second org admin, he or she has work to do. You have to go in and do the approval so this person can get their roles and their system set up for them to go in and do their processing. So let's choose one of the request ID. What it does, comes up with basically the same roles that we had seen or the entitlements that were shown initially when the first org admin actually did this. So if we're good, and again, here as a second admin, if you know what this person's functional or role should be as part of their processing, and you think these are incorrect roles or they should not be given to them, you have the ability here to actually do a rejection. You can reject you don't have to approve it. But for training's sake today, we're going to say everything is good, so we're going to go over and do the approval. So we're going to click on a button that says approve. You want to make sure you get a message that comes up there. You want to click on also confirm. Functional role request, and that's the number, approved successful, and it's pending final confirmation. Okay, so the org admins have done their piece. So the next step would be us for BNY Mellon to do their section. We go in and we have to do a finalization so that role can be confirmed. Once that role is confirmed, now we're going to show that to you, maybe not. Once a role is confirmed, we can go to user management and bring up that user ID and see the status of that user.
Just a side note, the user will not be seen here as operations did not finalize, but we do have the option to see all the users in the organization, including if the account we just provisioned, if they were to be finalized, they would be shown here as confirmed. But we do, we can see the user. So we have the user here.
Bring up that user. Let's go on to manage. Just want to see the status. Of course, there's going to be another session on this, but once you'll have seen the status change to confirm, and that user will be able to log in and navigate through the system and continue to start doing their processing, actually. Tori, did I miss?
All right, Letitia, I think that's it for the video portion.
Yeah, it sure. And if you can take us back to the presentation. We did have a question come in. Gregory, we see your question in the Q&A about how do you delete a user after you've discovered that you input the wrong user ID? That is a fantastic question. And if you are an organization administrator who sent a registration invitation to a user and they completed that invitation, and you are the second organization administrator going in to approve that user account and you realize that the information is incorrect, reject the account. Do not approve the registration request. It's a completely legitimate reason to not approve a registration request. The other thing that you need to note is when you are sending registration invitations, especially to token holders, the username must match the 11702. Okay. So if you are dealing with an authorized signer on the 11702 or someone who holds an RSA token, you must make sure that the name that they are set up under in the MyGinnieMae portal matches the name as listed on the HUD 11702. Any deviation from that name, a nickname, an added middle name, any deviation from that name will cause the RSA token to reject. So you do need to make sure that you are setting them up with the name as listed on the HUD 11702. But if you happen to send a registration invitation and then later realize as you are going in to approve that registration invitation that something does not match, reject the registration request and start over by sending a new registration invitation, okay? If you have passed the point where the registration request has already been approved and then identify that there is an error in the name, you will need to contact GinnieMae customer support for assistance, okay? And that is our help desk to the Bank of New York Mellon. Contact information will be provided to you a little bit later on. But that is what you would do if you realize that you input either an incorrect or misspelled name, or if you later realize that it does not, the name as you set them up does not align with the HUD 11702 and how their name is listed on that 11702. Okay. So there are a few tips here for preparing for onboarding end users, okay? And one of them is identifying the information that you'll need before you send that registration invitation. You need the display name, again, which should match that HUD 11702 for authorized signers, their email address, your issuer name and your issuer ID or IDs, if you're going to set the user up under multiple IDs, their job title, and you may also list their phone number. If they have an RSA token, you'll want to indicate that they have a token, and that will prompt the user to list their RSA token serial number when they complete the registration invitation. That's an important step to be done here, you know, before you send a registration invitation, so that the RSA token is connected to that MyGinnieMae ID that you're creating. If you do not set up the RSA token at the time that the account is created, maybe the person does not have the token available or they're not a token holder at the point that the account is created, you will need to reach out to GinnieMae customer support in order to set up that token on the back end. Okay. Some other tips, do not send registration invitations to users that are out of office. That registration invitation expires after 24 hours. So if they're not in the office to retrieve the invitation link, or don't have access to their email to be able to retrieve the invitation link, it doesn't do you any good to send that invitation. So don't send invitations to people who are out of office. Please do not bookmark the login page for MyGinnieMae. There is a public landing page at my.ginniemae.gov, which is the appropriate landing page to bookmark. If you bookmark the login page where you actually enter your username and ID, it has been known to create errors and not allow you to proceed with logging into the portal. Again, as you're assigning functional roles, please make sure that you assign the basic user role where there's a basic user role or the authorized signer functional role. Do not assign both functional roles to a user. If a user is an authorized signer, all they need is that authorized signer functional role to get all of the functionality that they need for their job responsibilities. Assigning both functional roles is actually a red flag to GinnieMae that their user has not been set up properly or has been provided more access than they need. Please make sure that you're instructing your users to select the default ID after functional roles have been assigned. So the first time that a user goes into MyGinnieMae to access business application, they may not see anything in the tools drop-down menu if they have not selected their default ID. QRC from the Getting Started User Manual, GS 3.4, provides instructions on how to select that default ID. You can share that with your users if they're expressing to you that they've logged into MyGinnieMae and can't see the applications. That's generally an indicator that either the functional roles have not been approved or the user has not selected their default ID. Okay. And please refer to the user manuals that are on GinnieMae.gov. There is a Getting Started user manual for general information about MyGinnieMae and available for all end users and organization administrators. And there's also the Access Management Console user manual for how to use that AMC application to onboard and manage end user accounts. Please make sure you're using those user materials to assist you. There's one other item that's not listed here that I do want to make mention of, and that's about the one-time PIN. Most of you have already signed into MyGinnieMae, and you're aware that there is a multi-factor authentication required to log into the portal, which includes the entry of a one-time PIN. Most of you are retrieving that one-time PIN via email, meaning after you've entered your username and password, you have an email sent to you with a code that you then enter to proceed into MyGinnieMae. Please note that there is an Oracle mobile authenticator available. We're going to drop a link to the quick reference card in the chat. But via the OMA, or Oracle Mobile Authenticator, which is an app that you can download to a smart device, you can have the one-time PIN generated through that app. This is important. Sometimes your organizations have firewalls that prevent emails from being delivered in a timely manner, and getting that OTP can be challenging. If you utilize the Oracle Mobile Authenticator application, it eliminates those delays. So the OTP is generated through the app and available to you at your fingertips. So please, I strongly encourage you, even if you do it as a backup plan in the event of a failure via email, I strongly encourage you to register for that Oracle Mobile Authenticator using a smart device so that you can always have access to that one-time PIN, okay? Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Now, there's also some information to know about onboarding org admins. If you need to set up a new organization administrator for your organization, there are 3 things that you need to do. You must first onboard the user into MyGinnieMae using the steps that we just demonstrated for you. Then you must make sure that the user is listed on the form HUD 11702. If the person is not already on the resolution of the board of directors, you will need to add them before they can be set up as an organization administrator. If the user is on the HUD 11702, or you have recently added them to the HUD 11702, you may then, and only then, reach out to GinnieMae customer support to have the privileged role of organization administrator assigned. Only GinnieMae customer support, as the operations administrator, can assign the org admin privileged role. This is not a functional role that you can assign as an org admin. This is a privileged role that only the operations administrator can assign. So please make sure that the user is registered with an account listed on the HUD 11702, and then you may contact GinnieMae customer support to request that that privileged role of organization administrator be assigned. Next slide. Okay, a few things about troubleshooting. 99.99% of the errors that you and your users are going to encounter are already identified in our user manuals. So if you are navigating the Access Management Console as an org admin and encounter some errors, please first refer to section 4.4 of the AMC user manual to make sure that you have not tripped up any of those items with an error flag. If you have already reviewed these pages and cannot identify why you are receiving a system error, you may then reach out to GinnieMae customer support for assistance. There's also errors listed in the Getting Started user manual that are a little more general to MyGinnieMae portal users and not specific to the use of the Access Management Console. Next slide. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and stop here and open up for a Q&A. This is just the first half of our presentation. We do have another video demonstration to show you how to manage end user accounts as well. So if you would like to ask a question at this time, you may raise your hand at the bottom of the screen. If you join today's audio using your computer, we'll be able to hear you that way. If you join today's audio using a telephone, please hit *9 to indicate that you would like for your phone line to be unmuted so that you can ask a question over the audio. While you guys are raising your hands, we're going to go ahead and jump into a couple of questions that have been shared through the chat. So the first question is, I'm sorry, you guys, let's see. Regarding the Oracle Mobile Authenticator, it requires a QR code to be scanned, but I do not know where I can get the QR code to add my account. The QR code is actually available to you in the instructions via MyGinnieMae portal. When you go to log into MyGinnieMae and you enter your username and password, there's going to be some instructions to the left of those boxes with a link on how to register for the Oracle Mobile Authenticator, which take you to the QR code that you need to scan. So that is where you find that QR code. If you need additional instructions, you're welcome, Tricia. If you need additional instructions, I encourage you to review that quick reference card that Ian posted in our chat on how to register with the Oracle Mobile Authenticator. A couple other things to note is that you can only register one device. So if you have registered a smartphone and decide to upgrade, you will need to go in to your account under My Profile in MyGinnieMae to remove that smart device before you can re-register or add a new device. So just a word to the wise there on using the Oracle Mobile Authenticator. Are there any plans to change the current 20-minute session timeout to at least a full day? Unfortunately, the answer to that question is absolutely not. The portal has to adhere to federal security requirements. FSMA and NIST, I believe, are the FICAM, or maybe, and NIST are the security requirements that we are bound by, and they do not allow us to leave sessions open for longer than that period of inactivity. Now, do keep in mind that 20 minutes is the inactivity timer. So your session would have to be inactive, meaning you have not, there's been no keystroke or mouse click in 20 minutes before that session is timed out. So as long as you are remaining active in your portal session, you should not be logged out of that portal session. However, and that is the basis for the 20-minute timer. If you are navigating between sessions, I do know that when you open a legacy screen, sometimes that does not register as activity in the portal session. You're able to go into MyGinnieMae, and right there at the top right-hand side of the screen is a little lock button. And when you hover over that, it will open the timer and you are able to extend your session that way. So you can avoid being logged out by going to the top of the screen, right-hand side, and hovering over the lock icon to expose the timer and hitting the extend session button. But no, we will not be able to extend the session timer for inactivity without a change to the overarching federal security requirements. And let's see, I've got a question about, do org admins that were set up in MyGinnieMae already no longer have access to the eGinnieMae.net site? So that is a loaded question. There is no connection between those two items, actually. So as part of our ongoing effort to begin to use MyGinnieMae exclusively, a couple of things are occurring. There is an MBS guide requirement that users must have, any system user, a GinnieMae system user must have MyGinnieMae credentials effective September 1st. And between now and December 1st, we will be removing the direct login credential, old legacy login credentials, meaning those old I accounts will be disabled between now and December 1st. That has nothing to do with being an organization administrator. That is actually every single user of GinnieMae systems. Between now and December 1st, we'll have those old legacy credentials removed. This is absolutely necessary. And yes, you will if you are a regular standard user or if you are an administrator. All users will have those old legacy credentials removed. You will then log into MyGinnieMae to access GinnieNet and legacy systems. So that is not actually unique to organization administrators. That is all users of GinnieMae systems. And when I say all, I mean GinnieMae employees lost that access actually a year ago. you will have those old legacy credentials removed. There's just no way around that. So, but I do want to clarify that has nothing to do with being an organization administrator. That is all systems users will lose those legacy credentials between now and December 1st. Okay. If that did not answer your question, please write in again and let me know. And so I have a question. I've been assigned an org admin and received approval from the ops admin. I do not have an RSA token, but other org admins do. So I do want to dispel the myth that in order to be an org admin, you need an RSA token. There are absolutely no functions that you will conduct as an organization administrator that require you to have an RSA token. Now, you must be on the HUD 11702 in order to get an RSA token, but just because you're on the HUD 11702 does not mean that you have to have a token, okay? So I say that to say, if you do need an RSA token because you need to act as an authorized signer in GinnieMae business systems, by all means proceed with contacting GinnieMae customer support to get that RSA token. But if your only role is to, on the HUD 11702, is to act as an organization administrator on behalf of your organization, there's absolutely nothing that you need to do as an org admin that requires you to have an RSA token. Okay. Again, if you need that token in order to complete business functions as an authorized signer, please proceed with contacting GinnieMae customer support, and we will provide that information. If you're not an authorized signer and you are simply an organization administrator, you do not need an RSA token. So Brittany, I see you are furthering the question about GinnieNet and users that are locked out. You cannot manage user access directly to GinnieNet. You can only manage user access to MyGinnieMae. So users that are attempting to log into GinnieNet directly will either need to go over to MyGinnieMae to access GinnieNet, or they'll need to contact GinnieMae customer support. If you are with an organization that has already had their legacy access removed, then there's nothing that can be done. They must log in through MyGinnieMae in order to access GinnieNet. Okay. All right. So, Ian, do we have any questions on the line? Has anyone raised their hand?
Nope. Everything was through chat and the Q&A.
Okay. Again, if you join today's audio using a telephone, you are able to hit *9 on your phone line to indicate for us that you would like to ask a question over the audio. I do know that some questions are not conducive to chat, so you're welcome to do that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the second half of the presentation. The Q&A will remain open, and we will have, the Q&A at the bottom of your screen will remain open. And as you can see here on the agenda, we're going to do a video demonstration of how to manage user access, as well as how to get to the AMC reports, direct you to some resources, and we'll open up for Q&A again, at the end of the session. Today's session does run, I do apologize. I should have mentioned earlier that today's session does run until 3:30 today, for another 34 minutes, in case you're in a different time zone. Okay, moving right along. So the Access Management Console, we already talked about how to get there, and we already talked about these tiles. What I want to identify is that the second half of the presentation is about managing user accounts. So you've already sent the new user registration request. You've already made sure that they have an account, and you've assigned functional roles. You've taken care of all of the approvals. Now that your users are in MyGinnieMae and they need help, their account has been disabled, they need a new functional role, you need to check on the status of functional roles. Anything else that you need to do now that that user has been established is going to be done right here under user management. So that tile on the far right hand side, and the instructions that we're about to go through are all completed using that user management tile. Okay, next slide. And when we get later on into the presentation and talk about our reports in AMC that will allow you to understand, you know, what's going on with your users, allow you to create a list of users if you need that for auditing purposes, so on and so forth. Those reports are available from the top of the screen. So you're in the Access Management Console and you go up to links at the top of the screen. That dropdown exposes security reports. And security reports will give you the following options in order to produce reports. You can do, you know, user registration reports where it'll show you users that are registered in the portal. You can do access request reports, which will show you the functional roles that have been assigned, you know, as well as if you need to check on, you know, multi-factor authentication, meaning users that are locked out of the account, their accounts because of too many OTP entries, incorrect OTP entries, or if they need to, you know, change their password because their password is expired and you want to check on, you know, that. Those things can be done with reports that are available to you in the Access Management Console. From that drop down at the top of the screen called links, you can get to security reports. Next slide. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and do a video demonstration of how to manage users in the MyGinnieMae portal.
So the 4 tiles that everybody would see. And as the teacher said, we'll be concentrated mostly on the user management section, because that's where we're going to do most of your managing your end users. So Tony, can we click on that box? First, we're going to, when we do get in, we're going to go in to look at some of the statuses that you might have noticed over your last 3 weeks, 4 weeks of actually getting your end users into the system. Once an access required is submitted, the system adds the functional roles to the user profile with a status of pending. And of course, the role is not provisioned to the user unless necessary approvals are completed. Of course, you have heard us said so many times, you add the role, a second org admin has to go in and do the approval, then it has to come to us at BNY Mellon as the ops admin to do the finalization. So we're going to go down to the section that has the manage user permissions, and that's where you'll see these are the roles that were initially set up by the org admin, and we're just going to check through some of the statuses that you might see. We have a pending status. If there's a pending status there, that means that function role requested is submitted and awaiting org admin approval. Then you have an approved status. That's the functional role is approved and awaiting operation admin action. Then we have a finalized status. That means functional role request has been finalized by the by the ops administrator. That's BNY Mellon. You have a confirmed status. The underlying role has been fully assigned to the users. So those are some of the roles that some of the statuses, I should say, that you'll see as part of your process. I notice we have another one on the system that says revoke, since we'll just talk about it, because you might have could have entered this by mistake. And you want to make sure that Wade Gale doesn't need this functional role, so you can actually go in as a org admin and revoke that role. And since I'm on this, I just want to say something. I've noticed over the couple of sessions or activity that we've been doing here at BNY Mellon as the ops admin, we notice that users tend to give the end user an authorized signer role and a basic user role. And if you don't need to actually give both. If you're an authorized signer, you don't need to actually get the basic user role because all of those functionality are actually a part of the authorized signer. And so just want to let you know that. So you don't have to clutter your desktop with all those unnecessary function roles if you don't need them. So that's just one of the things. One more thing we want to make sure you understand this process is also by clicking on by the role name, it also gives you the role display overlay. So it gives you an idea. You can track the information here. So it tells you display the name of the roles, give the request date, the requester, the approval date, the approver, the finalized date, the finalizer, and then the final thing is the status. So you can actually check this on your own to be sure that everything does show as confirmed. So you can do that for all the functional roles that were given to your end users. After that's done, you can actually close that. So you really want to concentrate, just make sure you do have the statuses right. If you see something pending, you know you definitely have to reach out to your next org admin and say, hey, you need to go in and do your due diligence on this so this role can be fully operational. Because of course Letitia had shown you the process flow. So there's certain things everybody has to touch something before it can be functional, before it can work for the end user. So you just want to make sure everybody gets into that. Okay. So now we're into the add the functional role. If an end user requires a new functional role, they may be done from the user management tile in the AMC. So Tony, can you just go down and see if right now this is a section where it says request access. You should be able to go in there and click on that and go straight to setting up find those functional roles for that user and actually give that person the functional roles that's needed as part of their process to process their daily work. So you should be able to do that there from that screen. The picture that we're showing around does not give us access, but you should be able to. Toyi, do we have any user that we can show them that it just goes straight to that? And I'm putting you on the spot right now.
Let's see. I have another account we can use.
That one doesn't show it either. Yes. Okay, good. So right from that screen, you can click on Request Access. And what it does, it takes you right into for you to do those functional request access. So you don't have to, if you're currently in the screen, you don't have to get out and go to that tile that says access. So you just can go in and do it from right here. And then just a reminder, we're in UAT, so it takes a while before it spins and gets to that page. Cool, there it is. Now, as a org admin, you can go in and do your functional role selection for that user. So this is just another way of getting to that access tile, so you don't have to actually go out and click on the tile itself. Okay, the next thing we have to do is, it says, remove a functional role. If an end user is no longer required access to a specific functional role, possibly because their business responsibility might have changed, organization admin are responsible to removing that role from the user account. This may be done within the management user permission section. We're going to go to Harry Wade and see after looking through Harry Wade, we find out that Harry Wade does not need basic. He actually doesn't do loan delivery, none at all. But they gave him both. No, he does loan delivery. Let me change that. He does loan delivery, and what I'd mentioned earlier, but he's not so we need to get rid of the basic user role. So we're gonna, first we do the select, and then we do remove. And then we want to do, are you sure you want to remove this? Of course, it gives you, make sure that's what you want to do. And then once, if you agree, you click and confirm. And then, of course, it goes through its own little stuff behind the scenes so that information can. So does the org admin, the second one, need to approve this?
No, once it's removed, it will be in revoked status.
Okay, good. So this might be something that org admin might be doing as they go along in setting up the process for the end users. It could be just a regular mistake, or I should not have given Wade that access at all. Let me just go in and remove it. So you do have the ability to change that, and that's to remove the functional role from that screen. Okay. We've actually removed the functional role. The status should have changed, but of course it takes a while. We're in UAT, so it would have changed to revoked. That's what we're actually looking for. So you see that revoked action there. That's what is going to come up on that user's screen. Okay, we have done that. We have done the revoked, and then we realize that as this user wants to do some update to their profile, there are certain things you can touch here as an org admin. There's certain things we don't allow you to. Like anything in gray is grayed out, so you won't be able to go into those fields. You notice once you point to it, you get that little red circle and line in between. But you can change a person's title if you want to change that. And also, initially when you were setting up this user, you did not give them their RSA token information. Now you can also do that. So if you click on yes, it's now required. You put in that 9-digit RSA token serial number. That's on the back of your current RSA fob. So you'll find it and you put that in. If the person wants there's that number. The person wants their mobile phone number there, you can actually add that also. And their work number, if by we just put in the wrong number there, they can go in and make changes to that screen. So those are some of the fields you can make changes to. And if it's not in the right format, you'll also get a message in red at the bottom saying it doesn't fit the format that it's looking for. So that's updating. And you want to make sure once that's done, once you update, you want to make sure you save that record. Toya, did you want to say something here about the RSA token?
Yes, thank you, Wade. Just a few things here where you enter your RSA token. There is an email that is sent out to the org admins. So say when you first register and you enter your serial number during the registration, an email will be sent out to operations to associate that token to your account. But however, just like this user who did not enter their serial number, the org admin has the ability to enter it for them, and doing so every time a new functional role is assigned to this user, the org admin will receive an email requesting to provide the token serial number and send it to operations to associate. And a quick example I will share on this screen is the email that you would receive as an org admin. here, asking you to provide your serial number with the user's information and their GMAP 1 ID and GinnieNet ID. Another quick thing for you to note here is that you'll be able to deregister the Oracle Mobile Authenticator for any reason if the user is not able to do it themselves, which they do have the ability to. You can assist and deregister their account here. And this is used for the one-time PIN when you opt in instead of the email. That was it. Wade, you can continue. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And just to piggyback on that a little bit, it's org admins. It's very, very important that you pay attention to those emails, especially the RSA token ones, because if you initially had set up your RSA token for that user, we'll get that information straight so we can do the provision. But once you edit and go back in and add that token, the workflow doesn't follow the full steps. So the information is going to come to you, and you as the org admin need to follow the instructions and get that information to us at BNY Mellon so that user can be provisioned and they have access to do their submission, either being in RFS when they're doing their certification or on GinnieNet or MFPDM when they're doing their pool submissions. Okay, now this is a common question that we used to get. I notice I said used to because in the system now is supposed to be self-service, or all of these administrative functions is now supposed to happen in the org admin space. And I'm talking about unlock or lock account. We do get it a lot, so I'll just try and give you some explanation here. A user can become automatically locked out of their account due to 3 failed password attempt, or if an org admin has manually locked the account via AMC. Locking a user's account is a temporary action and can be reverted. So right at the bottom there, you see the word lock. So we can actually, for instance, we can lock your account if we want to, because it could be that person has not been in for a while, or the person might be moving on to a different job, so we can do that lock. Confirm that it's locked. And of course, we want to see that the status say user successfully locked. And of course, again, we are in the UAT, so it does take a while to change. And you notice you'll see that's the sign that tells you lock. You see that padlock there? That will give you the clue that it's locked. And if you point at it again to you, it says locked. So that user is currently locked. So let's see if we can go in and unlock that person. And of course you'll get that message when the user is trying to log in. Right now you see it says they're unlocked. So let's click on unlock so that person can get access to logging into MGM and continue to do their workflow. So again, those are some of the things that you're going to say, oh, let me call Wade's team. Yeah, Wade's team is going to say, uh-oh, we can't do this anymore. It's have to be your responsibility now to unlock your end users. If you had called us as a org admin, we're willing to help you on doing that. But we're going to defer those requests on your end users. It will be now your responsibility to do that. But you can always call us and say hi. We'll appreciate it any time. Okay. Now, another thing is going through disable and enable a user. A user account may become automatically disabled due to the 90 days of inactivity. Enable the account and advise the user to log into Gen within 24 hours once the account has been enabled. That's a real thing you want to make sure you tell your users. Not because we're going to enable your account. If you have not logged in, if the end user did not log in after that account has been disabled, is enabled, it's going to go right back to the original status of disabled again. So you just want to make sure you are aware of that. Or the account will often be disabled again. So of course, you want to be sure that that doesn't happen. Admin should manually disable a user account if the user has left the organization or the other organization-specific reasons, such as a change in role. Of course, that person does not use MGM anymore because they have moved on. You want to disable them from the system. And let's show. I'm sorry, Toyd. I think I'm talking too much, so you're ahead of me. Disable. This user is disabled. We can go in and click on disable and disable the account. And Toyd, what happened here when the accounts are disabled? What happened to those functional roles?
So once a user is disabled, all the functional roles will go to the status where it'll be revoked, and so or missing. And if that happens, and somehow the user does come back to the organization, those functional roles will have to be re-requested.
Good, thank you, sir. So yes, that is true. When you go into that screen, you're gonna notice that the roles might say missing, and you'll have to re-request them, and then have to go through the function of being approved again, and then finalize, so that person can have full access. So you just want to keep in mind that. And again, enable, disable, all the responsibility of our new org admin to MGM, and you guys are gonna have fun doing this, I'm sure. Okay, next one, enable. So that person now should have access. And of course, we always encourage, after 90 days, your account is going to get disabled if you're not if you're not logging in the account on a regular basis. And I think is on the 81st day, you start getting notices. So you want to also pay attention to those notices, because you're going to get a reminder your account is getting ready to be expired, or whatever they paraphrased in the actual notice. But I think it's on the 81st day you start getting notices in reference to that. Okay, so we have enabled that user, and now the next thing you have enabled the user, and now the user does not remember their password, and that is such a common occurrence as in my world, in terms of calls that we get sometime. I don't remember my password, so we'll tell you what you can do here. And again, this is not something you'll call us for the end users. It will be strictly you taking care of them in your space. The service is used as an event that the user has forgotten their password and is unable to reset using the self-service capabilities, or they suspect their account has been compromised. So you can go in right where you see the word right up there, it says, or the tab, reset password. You're going to click on that, and what happens are you sure you want to reset a password? For a user, a new randomly generated password will be created and emailed to the user. So the user will have to look out for that password. It's not like in the GennyNet space that the password is generated and you tell them what it is. In GMAP, the password is generated and you either copy it and send it to them via email, No, this password is going to be sent straight to their email with, and they would have to retrieve that password and put it in the new system and also generate a new one. So that's a little bit different. So this is all you're doing now. It's not us anymore at BNY Mellon as an org, as an ops admin. It's going to be your responsibility to reset the users if they could not do it through self-service. Password was reset successfully. Okay, so we have done some little managing activities there: reset password, unlock, enable, update profile. Now, we as org admin also have some other responsibilities, because you might want some reports on your end users. As Letitia had mentioned earlier, you go to link and then you choose security reports. On the security reports, you're going to go to where it says the catalog folder. And we're going to choose the administrative folder. And this one here, we're going to look at the MC functional role request history report. So that's one of the reports that we want you to look at. And of course, this is where you have all the other reports if you want. So we're just going to check on that. And as Itoye is pointing to open, so let's click on open. And it's processing. So this is a report that comes up and show you information on your actual users. Toye, do you want to explain this a little bit more than I can? I know I might miss something.
Sure, Wade. So once you select the report you want to see, the system will generate, and here you will have a layout with the different columns of different information. So you see you have your require ID, user login, role name, role type, and you can filter this report based on the column. So if you click here on the drop down, you can select a specific user, or you can select in ascending or descending order based on how you want to see your report. And this goes same for, say, the approver or the date or whichever column you would like. Now, you also have the option to export this report into PDF or Excel. Now, do note when you do export to Excel, the report will not generate the way you would see it after you sort or filter on your screen. You will have to do the filtration on Excel. And the way you would do it is by clicking here where you have different options such as PDF, HTML, or Excel, like I mentioned. Wade?
Okay, thank you. And there's one more report we want to show you so you can get an idea and this is how to create an active user account report. So that one we're going to go to the Oracle. We're going to click on where it says Home Organization User Lists by Org Admin View. We're going to open those. We're just giving you an idea what some of the reports are. So this one kind of gives you all the users that are actually enrolled in your home org and Toye.
So here, like I mentioned earlier, you will have the option to say you want to only see the active users. You can just select active. I'm sorry, let me do that again. So for the status, you can select here that you only want to see active users. So you can select active and click OK. So this report will only show the active users.
And let's go ahead and cut it right here, please.
And the same applies if you want to see the disabled users.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to jump back into the presentation and wrap up with Q&A. We will hang on for a few extra minutes if folks have questions. But I do want to direct you to some resources before we break for the day. Here's where you can go for help. You guys, we've taken some time to produce some pretty good resources, including the video, the demos that you just saw today, the training presentations and quick reference cards, especially the quick reference cards, which are pulled directly out of our user manuals. All of those resources are available on GinnieMae.gov under issuer training and then tools and resources. Please make sure that you are checking those resources and utilizing them because there's a good chance that they're going to be able to answer your questions without ever having to make a phone call or wonder. There's also a monthly listening session between now and the end of the calendar year. The next one is actually next Thursday, September 24th at 2 o'clock Eastern time. The call details are posted on GinnieMae.gov under issuer training and announcements. There's a link here in the presentation that you were provided. So join us then. If you have any questions, these are open sessions for you to ask us any questions that you might have. And you're welcome to join us every month as we continue those listening sessions, which are targeted to answer your questions about MyGinnieMae. If you do need technical support, as always, you are welcome to contact GinnieMae customer support. That's Wade's team at the Bank of New York Mellon. And you can use the new centralized phone number 1-833-GNMA-HELP to get to them. Or you can email them at GinnieMae1@bnymellon.com. So we're going to open up again for question and answer to answer any final questions that you might have about how to manage end user accounts in MyGinnieMae as an organization administrator. As I mentioned before, you can raise your hand at the bottom of the screen if you joined today's session using the audio on your computer. If you joined using a telephone, you can hit *9. That'll let us know that you would like us to unmute your line, or you can type your question into the Q&A. Anyone who registered for this session before today would have received a copy of today's presentation emailed to them. If you did not receive a copy of that presentation, please contact CXG, that's Customer Experience Group, CXG at HUD.gov. Do we have any questions? I see something in the Q&A here.
Well, yep, we got a couple coming in Q&A.
Yep, okay, I'll go ahead and take care of those. So Martin, you're asking if an RSA token can be tied to an account via email with the help desk, or is a phone call more productive? Either way will work just fine. So whichever is most convenient for you, you're welcome to contact the help desk via phone or email. They will help you all the same, okay? Or at least direct you to who you need to be in contact with if they don't have the immediate answer. Do end user approvals show for all org admins? The answer is yes. Those reports that you just saw via the video demonstration are available to all organization administrators that have access to your issuer ID. And no question, I just wanted to say this was very helpful and informational. You are so welcome. I am glad to hear that. If you would like, you know, a shorter, quicker soundbite sort of format for key information that you will find helpful, definitely come back and join us next Thursday. Those listening sessions are quite meaty and helpful for quick tips. So thank you so much for joining us today. If we didn't get to your question, again, I typed into the chat CXG at HUD.gov for any general questions you might have, or if you need a copy of the presentation, or as always, you're welcome for technical support to contact GinnieMae customer support so they can assist you and make sure that you and your users are able to navigate in the new MyGinnieMae portal. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. I hope this was helpful to all, and we'll talk with you next Thursday. Bye-bye.
Bye.